The following story discusses individuals connected to the case of Danny Harris. Except for those previously convicted in this matter, no one mentioned in this series has been officially named a suspect, person of interest, or found guilty of any crime related to his death.
And so are we going west of town?
Yeah, this is where you came in. We're going east.
So I passed Cordova.
You did.
I'm in the car with my friends Elizabeth and Christy. Christy lives here in Memphis, but that's not where we're headed. Just past the city line, about 30 minutes east, sits Cordova.
So Cordova is sort of a white flight neighborhood. It's become a lot more diverse over time, and it's very cookie cutter subdivisions, not a lot of trees. And you live in Cordova if you're afraid of the city.
Oh, okay.
That's how it is nowadays.
Okay.
Cordova has that quiet southern charm people expect. Kids riding bikes, front yards with garden flags, family barbecues under low oaks. You've got strip malls, churches, and a nothing bundt cakes. It's the kind of place that wants to feel safe, wants to feel proud, wants you to believe nothing bad happens here.
Yeah, so apartments, shopping strips, but upscale-ish. This looks nicer than I thought it was going to look.
So those are the apartments.
Yeah.
A mile off the main highway, we pull into an apartment complex. Rows of 1- and 2-story brick condo-style homes, clean and tucked in tight. It almost feels like government housing, but slightly dressed up. There's not a soul on the porches. No one's walking a dog, no music, no voices, just stillness.
Okay, here's 2035. Okay, so there's two. It's right there. So back up a little bit.
We pull up to one, with a little flower ornament hanging on the front door. New owners live here now. You'd never know what happened inside. But this is where Danny Harris was murdered.
He was dead in there for 2 months. Can you imagine? Like, his neighbor's not even son. I mean, 2 months he was in there.
That's huge.
So Tammy was his prostitute girlfriend, and he would let Tammy turn tricks in here, in his house.
Oh my goodness.
In places like this, people talk, always have. So when a man dies in his apartment and nobody notices, not for 2 whole months, you have to wonder, what kept everyone quiet? Well, I've obtained the first-hand accounts of what happened next, and I can promise you, what once was kept quiet won't stay that way anymore. I'm Stephanie Tinsley, and this is Everything They Missed. Episode 2, The Record Button.
Hey.
Hey. Thanks for being able to jump on real quick.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
So, we had a meeting this afternoon, and the whole reason behind the meeting was Wayne Bebe, and I'm a little bit unsure about how his name came up.
Halloween 2007. Interrogations began of anyone who may have crossed paths with Danny Harris. With all the records in front of me, I sent them to my friend Elizabeth to talk through it.
Okay. Hold on just 1 second. Give me 2 seconds to read.
Yeah. Take your time.
Okay.
Take your time.
Tammy Vance sat down with detectives around 5 p.m., waived her rights, and said she had nothing to hide. She told them Danny was in bad shape the last time she saw him back in June, distraught over his son, a cop who'd been shot in the face. Police already knew that, but they let her talk, and talk she did, admitting that she'd prostituted in Danny's bedroom, taken him to bankruptcy appointments, and eventually dropped him at rehab after he beat her. 2 days after that, she came back to his apartment with his truck and took his retirement check and TV. With full confidence, she told them she hadn't been near the place since October 15th, when she pulled another check from Danny's mailbox and cashed it for herself.
Well, when you read Tammy's statement to Sergeant Mason that she gave on the 31st of October, you can see that Mason is leading, trying to see what Tammy has to say when they're like, well, when's the last time? How did you come in and out of the apartment? And Tammy says, oh, well, I had a key because I had the truck keys. And then Mason asks her about if she still had all the keys. And Tammy immediately said, oh, well, there were 2 keys to the apartment on that key ring. And I did loan the truck to this guy, Wayne Bobo. When he gave me the truck keys back, I did notice that there was a key to the apartment missing.
I can imagine detectives hooking into that name, Wayne Bobo, and suddenly the details of the crime start to shift. That old tube TV, it was bulky, heavy, not something Tammy could have hauled off on her own. And the scene itself, it was savage. So whether they said it out loud or not, I'd bet the idea was already forming. Tammy didn't do this alone.
Wayne Bobo was one of Tammy's regulars, according to Tammy, and that he would come over to Danny's house and that he started to not want to pay. And, when people ask about Wayne Bobo, they say that he's just a crackhead.
Wayne Bobo was real. He was already in the system, a black man around Tammy's age who she'd once met in a rooming house. And if you're not familiar with the term, a rooming house isn't just a shared home. It's a chaotic, makeshift shelter, usually tied to drugs, prostitution, overcrowded to the point that people hang up sheets to make fake walls. Just saying someone lived in one is enough to paint them as dangerous. So if Wayne had ever been in Danny's apartment, and if, as Tammy claimed, he'd stopped paying her for sex, then maybe Danny tried to cut him off from the apartment, from Tammy. And maybe that's all it would take for a man like that to snap. So detectives went looking for him.
So who puts Wayne at Danny's apartment?
Tammy.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody asked me to describe Tammy, I would say based on all the items I've read and all the interviews I've listened to, I would describe her as Jabba the Hutt. That's what I picture her as. It's a big old school.
How do we say that?
Trying to get a sense of her character, I started reaching out to people who knew Tammy Vance. And every single one of them, the ones willing to talk, said the same thing. You're not going to find anyone with something nice to say. So when I look at Tammy's story about Wayne Bobo, it doesn't just raise questions. It feels strange.
I think what Tammy is trying to say is Wayne Bobo borrowed Danny's truck when Danny was still alive. And when he came back, one of the keys was gone. And then he came back and, unbeknownst to anybody else, murdered Danny. But then the follow-up question to that should be, so you were living with Danny and then you just decided not to go home one day? It would have fallen apart.
Just days after supposedly dropping Danny off at rehab, Tammy moved into a new apartment with her daughter, Sarah Lucas. And while I can't confirm they ever asked, I have to believe detectives were wondering the same thing. Why move out at all?
I'm sure that some of that is so typical of these career petty criminals. I'm sure they get crazy answers, and maybe the investigators just have become deaf to it and don't even wonder because half of what they're told doesn't make sense. But when you're investigating a murder, you have to wonder about those things.
Detectives were looking but hadn't found Wayne Bobo, and they didn't have much else to run with. So they did the only thing they could do. They brought in Tammy's daughter, Sarah.
When did you learn of Danny's death?
Just now, when you told me.
Detectives started with asking Sarah Lucas about her mother. And what she had to say? Well, we've had a voice actor recreate her statement.
She used to have sex for money. She called it tricks. I call it prostitution. Danny told her that she had to turn tricks to make $200 to $300. He needed that money for beer and cigarettes.
Detectives started laying down the hard questions. First, the truck. Danny's truck. Why did her mom have it?
He gave her permission. He said for her to do whatever she had to do to take care of herself until he could get out.
Then the cell phone. Why did her mom have that too?
There were times when I was with her and it would ring. She would say it was one of her tricks and she didn't want to talk to them.
And finally, what did she know about Wayne Bobo?
Tammy said that Wayne Bobo was getting bad about going over there and that he wouldn't want to pay for tricks. I heard Wayne Bobo in the background over the phone one time when she was at Danny's house. He was talking to Danny.
At 2 a.m., Sarah walks out of the station, and Wayne Bobo still hadn't been found. Detectives checked one of the known addresses for him, a halfway house called Lighthouse Ministries. They show up around 9:30, but he wasn't there, hadn't checked in for some time. And the more they looked at Tammy's story, the more it started to hold water. A crackhead, ex-client, unpredictable, angry, with access to the apartment. Whether Tammy was lying or not, Wayne Bobo looked like someone worth chasing. But by the morning, something else grabbed their attention.
This is a prepaid call from an inmate at the county correctional facility.
I've obtained the official transcripts of this jailhouse call and have had voice actors recreate it.
Hello?
Hey, what are you doing?
Nothing. I could not sleep last night. I was at the police station until 3 in the morning.
When Tammy was finally allowed this one call, she used it on her daughter.
Yeah, they got me on a 48-hour hold, but I don't think they have anything. Didn't do anything, so you know. Did they ask a lot of questions?
Yeah, they asked a lot of questions. And, Mama, what is going on? They say he was brutally murdered.
Yeah, that is what they said, and I told them I didn't even know he was dead, and isn't that what you told them?
It's worth noting, the transcript actually says here there was a pause.
I didn't know he was dead.
I know, and they asking all kinds of questions about the truck and the TV, and I guess somebody told them about the pistol because they came back in last night and asked me, and they said they were holding me for 48 hours and they had to either charge me for first-degree murder or they had to let me go. And they said something about Ricky Eccles, and I don't know how that got there. And I had told them about Wayne Bobo and all that. Did you mention Wayne Bobo?
Yeah, I told them that I knew him. I didn't lie to them about nothing.
See, you corroborated what I said, so, that pretty much did it.
I noticed that word, corroborated. It's not how people talk. Not in the middle of a call like this. It doesn't sound like fear or confusion. It sounds like Tammy's strategizing. And maybe I'd think I'm being too skeptical if she hadn't said it again.
I was supposed to return the truck, but I didn't, and I was guilty of that for not returning the truck and using his money, so... But when I told him about Wayne Bobo coming to the apartment a couple of times and stuff like that, and I guess you corroborated my story.
I told them the truth.
It's safe to assume Tammy and Sarah knew they were being recorded.
And they tried to trip me up, but I told them the truth. I stuck to the story, so they're gonna talk to other people. I told them everything. I didn't lie about anything.
There's no record of what detectives thought about that call. No notes, no reaction, which makes it all the more strange what happened next. Because Sergeant Mason decided to circle back to someone they'd already spoken to the day before. And I've been trying to figure out why. I've combed through the transcripts, retraced the steps, looked for some breadcrumb that might explain the shift, but the trail is just cold. So to understand what might have triggered it, we have to rewind. Back to day 1, Halloween, when Tammy Vance is hauled into the station, and not long after, 3 others walk through the door, the same people she and her daughter had moved in with.
So on Halloween, Tawana and Andrew and Snow got up to the police station. Andrew drives them up there.
Snow is the police informant. Tawana is her daughter, and Andrew Hayes is Tawana's boyfriend.
Tawana and Andrew sat in the lobby while Mason took Snow to her desk to talk with her. The next thing that Mason says is that she talked to Andrew Hayes at her desk.
Andrew was polite, quiet, a young black man who wasn't even asked to come in. He'd just been giving the women a ride and waited in the lobby watching his 1-year-old son. That was it. But then the sergeant learned he lived in the same house, and she pulled him aside.
When she started talking to him and saying, "How much do you know about Tammy Vance?" Andrew said that Tammy sold him a black cell phone at the end of August for $15, and he used it for about 2.5 weeks because it ran out of minutes, and there was nothing else.
This conversation was short, unrecorded.
While this decision to question Andrew seemed innocent, what really caught my attention was what Sergeant Mason had written next to his name in the report. A single note, small, easy to miss.
Mason says that she talked with Andrew Dwayne Hayes, a.k.a. Wayne. So he sat there and talked with Mason, and, this is her summary of their conversation, saying, yeah, it doesn't seem like he has any knowledge about anything, but I may have to call him back. And he was more than willing to come back in.
After sitting on it overnight, Sergeant Mason has Andrew Wayne Hayes brought back to the station. The reason was because the name he went by. Police were chasing Wayne Bobo, but here was Andrew, who also went by Wayne. So was this a coincidence, or were they onto something?
Can you hear me pretty good? So you like to be called Andrew, right?
Right. If either one, you call me Andrew, Wayne, it don't make no difference.
What's your mama call you?
Wayne.
Okay. What would you want me to call you in the podcast? Clean cut, well-mannered, the way a lot of Southern men are, Andrew Wayne Hayes called me ma'am or Miss Stephanie. He's in his 40s now, but back then, he was just a kid in his 20s. I went to sit down with him because I wanted to understand how the investigation started that day and what he remembers being dragged into its path. So when they brought you back into, was it like a small interrogation room or a small interview room?
Yes, ma'am.
And so then you knew it was serious.
Believe me, I'd love to play Andrew's interrogation, but I can't, because Tennessee law enforcement isn't required to record them. It's not law, it's a choice. While Tammy's interrogation was recorded, there's no clear reason why. So I took things a step further. I recalled that the TV series First 48 may have been in production at the time, and I'd hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd caught some of this investigation on tape.
First 48 is actually a show that I created.
Really?
Back in 2004. So you're talking with the right person who could help in whatever ways that you were thinking about that I could be of service to you.
I reached out to the creator, John Kim. John was generous with his time, and he put me in touch with a current producer. I asked if they had any footage related to Danny Harris's case, or if anyone on the show could speak on the record. Their reply, they couldn't give interviews. They cited contractual confidentiality. No comment on whether they had footage from those critical interrogation days. And that's what's wild. A reality TV show might be sitting on tape that could clarify the most confusing parts of this case. But legally, they don't have to share a second of it. So, do they have it? We may never know. And with no official record, all we're really left with is Andrew's word of what happened next.
She would ask me, did I know anything about what was going on? Have I heard anything about a murder that occurred? And I was like, ma'am, I don't even know what you're talking about.
At 1:50 p.m., officers began what seemed like a light, informal interview with Andrew. He told them the first time he met Tammy was when she showed up at his house with a TV in her truck and asked for help unloading it. But an hour in, the tone shifted. Andrew was read his rights, waived them, and then the accusations came.
And she was like, what do they call you on the streets? And I said, Wayne. She was like, what do your mom call you? I said, my mom called me Wayne. She was like, sure your name not Wayne Bobo? I'm like, I don't even know who that is. Where I'm from in the neighborhood, everybody know me as Wayne. That's what I go by, everybody. I don't go by no other name but Wayne. So it's like when I got to telling her that my name is not Wayne Bobo, it's like it made her upset. You know, she's got to scream like, so you're going to sit here and tell us a bold-faced lie? You're going to sit here and lie in our fucking face? She's not going to expose you, saying who you are? I'm like, who exposed me? Then she was like, Tammy. I'm like, Tammy? She was like, Tammy. I'm like, Tammy. She was like, Vance. I'm like, I don't even know no Tammy, man. She was like, yeah, the one that your mother-in-law moved in the house. And that's when it clicked that she was talking about Miss Tammy, you know? I didn't even know her last name was Miss Vance until she told me. And it's just, like I said, man, it's just, they treated me like I wasn't even human, just to be honest with you. Somebody like a real piece of shit. Excuse my French. It's like, they wanted what they wanted, you know? They didn't care what I had to say about the situation or not. It just, they wanted what they wanted. Lieutenant Armstrong was like, we already know you hit him in the back of the head with the pipe. I'm like, so y'all saying I beat somebody to death. So he was like, just tell us what you did. I was like, I haven't done shit. Y'all ask the same questions over. We're not going nowhere. We still in the same spot. We're not getting nowhere.
Again, there's no complete record of Andrew's interview. But according to him, detectives told him flat out, you did this. We know you did this. Now, maybe that sounds like a convenient defense until you realize these same detectives have pulled this stunt before.
My biggest concern is that if we get Mookie in here, I want to make him comfortable. I want him to talk to me. I need him to talk to me. I really need a confession from Mookie.
That's Sergeant Carolyn Mason, heard on the first 48, not working the facts, but working the person.
Listen, we know what happened. Tell me the truth. Who shot Homer?
They didn't know what happened. They were pressing for a confession. And it wasn't just Mason. Mullins, another detective on the case, was caught in heavy crossfire when his fellow officers were caught on a hot mic.
We had everything. Did you see everything we had? We put on a great show. Didn't seem to bite too hard with DNA, though.
This tape was uncovered by the Institute for Public Service Reporting in Memphis in 2020. Detectives, unaware they were being recorded after a grueling interrogation, spoke freely. Mullins rebuked he didn't seem to bite too hard on the DNA, to which his comrade replied, actually he did. And before the tape cuts out, another officer makes a chilling remark.
That shit is not a record. They press play, we go to the penitentiary.
He said they press play and we're going to the penitentiary. Meaning, if their interrogation tactics had been caught on tape, they'd be in serious trouble. So when Andrew claims the detectives begin to feed him details of the crime piece by piece, it's hard not to believe him.
She's like, well, you know more than what you telling me. I can't know more than what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that's all I know. And she was like, well, we got her saying that you was with her. How? She didn't even say that I don't even know her.
He swears he had nothing to do with it. Over and over again, denial after denial. But then, 4 hours in, for some reason, he shifts. The moment detectives had been waiting for, Andrew changes his story. He admits he went with Tammy to get the TV, but claims Danny Harris was already dead when they walked in.
I believe they did try to scare me, to be honest, because I kept telling them the wrong person. They was like, you killed that man, and you did this, did that. And I'm kind of keep telling them, y'all got the wrong person. Y'all got the wrong person. Wrong person, wrong person. And it's like, they didn't want to hear it. The only thing they wanted to hear was, okay, I did. And once they got what they wanted, it was like, everything was cool. And water was back fine there.
According to Andrew, detectives kept pressing. They told him his fingerprints were in Danny Harris's bedroom, and so he shifted his story again. Through sobs, he began to say he played a role in the homicide. But there was a problem. Andrew couldn't describe the apartment, not on the inside, not even the outside. So he says that's when detectives pulled out photos of the crime scene, studying his face for any flicker of recognition. And when there wasn't one, they didn't stop. Andrew says they told him they had proof he killed Danny, and even eyewitnesses to back it up.
At that time, I didn't know what to think. To be sitting in an interrogation room with 3 people were highly educated for hours and hours and hours, just cussing and screaming at you, telling you that you ain't shit. You gonna tell them what they want to hear. You're not leaving. You're not gonna never see your family again.
And what Andrew's telling me is he didn't give detectives the truth. He gave them what they wanted to hear.
He starts blaming everybody under the sun. He said something about Snow.
Right.
So I'm sure she didn't want anything to do with any of this.
Again, this is attorney Jason Gishner, who spent countless hours piecing together what we can about these interrogations. What we know for certain is this. Snow, Andrew's housemaid and mother of his girlfriend, is brought back to the station. Why? Because at this point, Andrew is pointing the finger at her, just as he did at several others before. But what detectives do with that accusation, it's almost unbelievable.
So they make a strategic decision to put her in front of him and watch that conversation to see if he'll continue to either blame her or make some admission himself. And she confronts him and say, why would you say I had anything to do with this? I had nothing to do with this. And he loses his mind, hysterically crying at this point. It is an entirely useless conversation because he is so traumatized and so upset that he's freaking out. He's crying. He's screaming at her, bring me home, that they abandon the whole strategy, send her on her way, and put him back in his cell because he's literally just saying gibberish at this point and saying anything he can possibly think of to say to get out of there and go home.
By now, detectives have enough to stick Andrew in a solitary cell for hours until they decide it's time for more.
And eventually, Andrew starts giving them the information that they want to hear. He's confessing to stuff that didn't happen, like killing somebody on the second floor of the apartment.
After a total of 27 hours, with little rest, no food, and no legal representation, Andrew Wayne Hayes, in a roundabout way, gave a confession. He described Danny's apartment as being upstairs and 3 bedrooms. He described striking Danny 7 to 8 times in the back of the head with an iron pipe. He said Tammy threw bleach on his face and stuffed a towel in his mouth. And then he signed it. For detectives, it was the golden ticket. The case was closed. The killer was caught. But here's where I get hung up. Andrew said he killed Danny in the upstairs apartment. But I've been there. There is no upstairs. Andrew said that he struck Danny in the back of the head, but I've seen the medical records, and it clearly states Danny Harris was beaten in the front of the head. And the biggest discrepancy? That Danny was killed 2 weeks ago, when in reality, his body had been abandoned for 2 months. Andrew's confession did not match. But curiously, his confession loosely matched what could be gleaned from a suspect who had been shown photos of the crime scene.
As we come to their confession, like I told them, if that's what y'all want to hear me, that I did, okay, I did. Just so I could just kill the interrogation, man. I was tired, 27 hours. I was exhausted, I was tired. I was just ready to get it over with. It's like, okay, if y'all wanted me to say I did it, I did it, man. Let's get it over with, man. I'm tired. You know, sitting in the same spot for 27 hours, anybody get tired.
Andrew's confession didn't match the scene. Not the layout, the wounds, the timeline of his death, but detectives took it anyway. They held it up as the answer they'd been chasing.
It is not until Andrew Hayes starts saying things that they would call a confession that they go back to Tammy Vance and say, hey, Andrew Hayes is in the other room saying he did this. And now, for the very first time, Tammy Vance jumps on that and says, well, that's because me and him did it together. And she gives a statement that doesn't make any sense and says, look, I committed this crime with Andrew Hayes.
Suddenly, for the first time, Tammy implicates Danny and herself. For me, this is the part of the investigation that I dwelled on. This is what kept me up at night. Because you have to visualize those days after Danny's body was discovered and how detectives got here. Tammy is arrested driving Danny's stolen truck. Detectives find Danny's stolen items in a room Tammy and her daughter Sarah are renting. Detectives hear the jailhouse call when Tammy and Sarah discuss corroborating and sticking to a story. They have a strong lead on a man, Wayne Bobo, who seemingly had motive and opportunity to murder Danny. And they have a confession obtained after an unrecorded 27-hour interrogation that didn't match the evidence at the scene. But despite all these leads, poof. After Andrew confesses, Tammy changes her statement to fit Andrew's confession, and the search for Wayne Bobo is given up. Case closed. Detectives can tell their fellow officer, Chris Harris, that they've solved his father's murder. But before they could celebrate too much on this victory, a piece of evidence had come back from the crime lab. Fingerprints pulled from a checkbook found in the stolen truck Tammy had been driving. They didn't match Danny. They didn't match Tammy. They didn't match Andrew. They didn't match Wayne Bobo. So the question is, who did they belong to?
Thank you for listening to Everything They Missed. If you want more before next week's episode, follow me on social media at the Stephanie Tinsley for extended interviews and deeper details into the story. And visit us anytime at everythingtheymissed.com to see photos, videos, or leave a voice message for me on our tip line if you think you have information to help this case. Also, don't forget to follow, rate, and review this show. It helps more than you know.